Siphinde sibingelele futhi ngelihle igama lika Yesu Kristu inkosi nomsindisi. We are also here to give also a view with regards to the constitutional ruling of men having to be allowed to take their wives' surname, which was passed in South Africa, I think on Wednesday or Thursday, I'm not sure, which rules Section 26 of the Birth and Death Registration Act to be unconstitutional, since it did not allow, because it discriminated on gender and did not allow or offer the opportunity of men to take their wives' surname. And it all started because of two white couple, these people simply wanted, the men simply wanted to be offered the opportunity of taking the wife's surname, and then from there he challenged the courts, and then he ended up winning, and they had to change the ruling of that. But prior to that, there's something that we need to understand about surnames. One of the judges even called, Section 26 that existed prior to the current ruling as being of colonial origin and patriarchal nature, because it was oppressive to women. Sometimes you wonder the type of judges we have in South Africa. This is why you had Judge Hlophe, desiring for the abolishment of the current constitution and the current laws which are in South Africa, because he accused them of being, anti-native Roman Dutch type of laws. And that was important because the current ruling is based on Western values, Western traditions, Western culture. Because even the use of surname in the first place, if you can check, in native South African communities, a woman was not required. First of all, we did not have surnames. Let's begin there. We did not have surnames. Surnames were introduced by the settler, colonial group, the Europeans who are foreigners in South Africa. It's something that they practiced back then in Europe, and then because they wanted certain social control, within our native South African communities, they began to introduce this thing of, surnames. We had clan names. And with clan names, people can say whatever they like, but clan names were not originated by only males. Clan names were something that originated from communities, certain people, who came, together, and then they started to form, maybe a certain community, and then later on clans, tribes, and then nations. So a person in South African community is respected by his or her clan name. And when one gets married, especially with the woman, she was not required to change her clan name. Even when a woman is, let's say, the woman is getting married in Butelis, she does not suddenly become a Butelis. She continues to be a Sbia. But the children that she's going to give birth to are going to be the children of Sbia. You see, Yena, she remains to keep her own identity. You see, so with the introduction of so-called surname, it then became a practice where when a woman gets married, then she had to change the surname. She had to come and embrace the surname of the male. That's an introduction by the Europeans. Now, this Judge Theron, as they call it, she was saying that the law that existed, that was put there in the 90s, in Section 26, was a colonial patriarchal laws. And then somehow this means that the one that they are introducing is somehow, proper, anti-colonial, anti-patriarchal, forgetting that the law that they are currently trying to correct, they are correcting it via colonial values and kinds of thinking. Because if now you're going to say that the man, can now embrace, or can take the woman's surname and all of those stuff, what type of values are you trying to promote in the society? And thus has also the danger of eradicating our own native heritage, our own native identities. Because even with the issue of surname, like for example in the Eastern Cape, our surnames definitely are not connected with the clan. That's fine. But when you go to KZN, their surnames are connected with their clans. So now a person gets married, maybe let's say a foreigner goes in and gets married to a lady in KZN, and then that foreign man decides to take the surname of that lady, and then you are creating this mixed up, this so-called confusion, where you will find people who are using certain surnames, which are certain surnames, but they have no connection whatsoever with the type, with the people, with the clans, with the lands where those surnames are coming from, especially in the case of KZN. It's much better in the case of, I think, the Eastern Cape and in the Free State, because I think one can have, like for me, the surname that I have is not entirely connected to my clan. You do have people who have the very same surname but do not belong to the clan that I belong to, but that's something different when you go to KZN. So now this ruling doesn't take into consideration all those type of ways of living. They are just trying to push this thing of anti-colonialism, anti-patriarchy, without considering how native people live. So how about the fact that if thus we say it's South Africa, we stop using European values to judge everything? How about the fact that we go back to pre-European invasion and start using those values and traditions which were there, and those values and traditions were not oppressive to women. A woman could keep her own clan name as long as she lived, and that clan name was also passed on. Even the children, even though they became identified with the father, but that doesn't mean that was it. Even the children knew very well who their mother was, because your father's clan and your mother's clan sort of like existed before you all the time. Doesn't mean now just because you embrace the identity of your father, therefore you forget about your mother. No one in South Africa forgets about her own mother. People can even trace their clan name, to their great-grandmothers. So this idea now of bringing this patriarchy thing, these are just part of this Western agenda which tries to impose itself here in South Africa and in the rest of the continent under the name of freedom and democracy. So this is what they are trying to do. They are trying to mess up our own heritage here in South Africa by bringing these leftist radical ideas which do not sit very well with us here in South Africa. So the Constitutional Court is correcting something which they are saying is wrong, using wrong methods. So this entire thing is altogether wrong, because now the man doesn't have to take a woman's surname because the surname is colonial. The woman doesn't have to take the man's surname because even that is colonial, So how about you deal with our clans? That's something that many of you in the so-called constitutional court are not willing to do, because with this will then mean having to decolonize a lot of things, having to decolonize many of those ideas and categories which were put there by the Europeans. This is why now our clans are ignored over the use of this type of thinking. But even so, the natives in South Africa have already built serious connection using this type of surnames. They've already built, working communities using this type of, communities, using this type of surname, even though they are colonial. And now you are introducing another thing, confusing us even worse. You can just see that the type of people who are sitting and making decisions regarding these things are people who just do not care about South Africa. They just want to see this country in chaos. They just want to see this country like having no soul. They desire to see us empty, lost, continuously being brutalized by this oppressive European system. So sort of the whole idea, we simply do not agree with it. We find it to be deeply unbiblical, and also just anti-native in the context of South Africa. So I do wish that people can make petitions and all this type of thing to oppose this type of rulings, because they are very dangerous to the natives of South Africa. Thank you very much.